Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is a Metroidvania style game with some fairly heavy Soul style influences. And I happen to like it a whole lot. So I thought I would stream it a bit to start off my plan to do some marathon streaming this month. Oh god, I'm tired today. I'm sorry. I will try to be as talkative as I can. So I have played this game before to completion, though not entirely to 100%, so I don't know this game in and out, but I know it fairly well enough. I am, as of yet, undecided on whether or not I'm going to do like a whole playthrough on stream. Oops. I might. Whoops. Yes, as you can see, I'm very familiar with this game. Those little blue masks up there are sort of like, they're a bit like armor, actually. They're not really part of my health total per se. They won't heal back up if I get hit and then heal. They will just absorb 2 hits for me and that's it, unless I go back to that little place and pick them up. Can't quite make it. As its lineage would suggest, a lot of this game is about exploring and finding secrets. Given that we just started, there's not much to find just yet because our abilities are fairly limited.
Oh, jittery. YOLO no to go with. Akala, tono.
Benches are essentially our bonfire equivalent. They heal you and they set your spawn point. There's currently nothing really in the town because most of the residents have gone down below. To make use of any of the town services, we need to find them first. this is the first real area of the game, the Forgotten Crossroads, it's not as easy as that little lead up to the Dirtmouth town, but it's still fairly easy.
哥，你都来了没？ 那米诺比斯，那米诺比斯，那米诺比斯。
I suppose there's no real reason for me to stay quiet during dialogue. Anyway, this is the Black Egg, and it is sort of the focal point of the game. Everything in Hallownest sort of revolves around it, and what keeps it shut. Its exact function and purpose are at the moment obfuscated, but we will find out in due time, I would hope anyway. I'm heading over this way first, after showing off the Black Egg for a fairly specific reason, if I remember right. You don't take any fall damage in this game unless you specifically land on something harmful, so if it's quicker to just take a quick fall, then go ahead. Especially at the beginning of the game, it's worthwhile to go out of your way to fight the enemies because they drop Geo, which is important. There's some important things you need to buy early on, so getting a good supply of it early is generally a good way to spend your time. Case in point.
嚯，当这次的。
You always want to purchase a map of the area.
Chocolate characters. Oh, 当这次的。 Chocolate characters.
So, mapping in this game is a little bit unique. To actually get a map of an area, you need to buy it from Cornifer first. And to actually get a lot of use out of your map, you also need to buy some supplies from his wife, Iselda, back up in Dirtmouth. However, that does cost some money, so we will need to gather some funds before we head back up. It's extremely worthwhile to do, at least in my opinion, because I get lost pretty easily. And it is a facet of the game that I think some people aren't hugely fond of. It does feel a little excessive. I kind of like it because it adds a sort of a unique rhythm to exploration. You sort of start out a new area completely in the dark, and whenever you find Cornifer, you're really happy because hooray, I have the map, and I kind of like that dynamic. You can destroy a lot of stuff in this game for no real reason. The little rocks with the geo protruding, though, there's a reason for that, because they drop quite a bit of money. Up there is the beginning of a side quest that spans the whole game. You need to rescue these little caterpillar guys. Unfortunately, we do not have the equipment to get up to him. We fall just short, and that makes him sad. And me sad, too. There's a secret door around here somewhere, I think. But I don't think I can actually access it anyway. Oh, for now. I'll come back later when I think I can get to it to begin with. The enemies at this part of the game are not particularly difficult. Enemies are not immune to environmental hazards, so if you knock them into spikes, they will die. I forget exactly how much money I need to go back to Uselda and buy all the mapping stuff. Hello? Alright, this guy. He's quite big, but he's also fairly slow. The saying, float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, is fairly apropos for a game like this. Against a lot of these enemies, you can't get more than one hit in at a time because you'll just get flattened by the immediate counterattack. That particular big guy guarded a caterpillar friend, so we can let him loose. This game is extremely cute, except when it's terrifying.
얘기?
Is everybody... Oh, I made a mistake with my Twitter link. One sec. Pause menu. Okay, sorry. I had to fix a thing real quick. There's nothing we can really do at this part of the crossroads for now, so we'll turn back. I think after killing that big guy, I should have enough money, or close to it. I picked a bit of a bad time to stream. My head is still very fuzzy from not sleeping well last night and having to get up early. But I said I wouldn't, here I am. So there. Oh, this is... I'm lost already. I need a map. I need a map that works. I gotta go back. A safe way to deal with a lot of enemies is to do a downward slash while in midair, so you sort of pogo on them. It's not always feasible, but when it is, it's usually fairly safe. Alright, here's the egg. Alright, back up we go.
Papa nada.
Eventually we'll want all of these things, especially the wayward compass. But for now, just having the quill is useful. Your map gets updated whenever you rest at a bench. You are, in fact, a bug in this game. Though you're a very cute bug. Most of the bugs in this game are cute. As you can see, now that we've got the quill, that whole area we explored in the last little bit is now filled in. It's still not quite complete. We still need to buy some pins and a compass so we know where we are.
Hoo-hoo. Oh,
Anyway, this is the focal point of the caterpillar rescuing side quest. The grub father up there will reward us with money and other goodies for each of his children that we rescue. It's quite lucrative, and a lot of the caterpillars are actually just sort of lying around and fairly easy to get to places, so even if you're not like super into the whole idea of getting all of them, it's still worth it to get the ones you at least see. Right now especially, because I'm sort of strapped for cash and I need a compass. That way is a definite no-go. For now. This particular room can actually be a little bit difficult to navigate when you're first starting out because you don't have any of the aerial movement abilities. So actually getting to some of the more out-of-the-way passageways is a little difficult without like a dash or a double jump. And half the time it just leads somewhere not useful anyway. In proper Metroidvania fashion, you will find all sorts of areas that have a fairly obvious telegraph that you will get some sort of tool to be able to explore them later. Especially if you're familiar with the genre, like that was fairly obviously a wall jump site. This room introduces one of the more complex mechanics in this game, and that's using your downstab specifically as a traversal method. You can use the pogo ability to get across gaps that are bridged by enemies. It can get quite involved. Like I said before, each caterpillar rescue directly translates into more money for you. And it's like you don't even have to get past a certain threshold to get a reward. It's just for everyone you rescue, you get like an increasing amount of geo. So, like I said, when you find one, rescue one. There's no reason not to. A lot of these geo deposits are in kind of annoying places. Without a specific ability we'll get a bit later, it's kind of difficult to actually get all of the money that falls from these rocks. Kind of a minor quibble, but something worth noting. Occasionally the game will throw you into these little challenge battle rooms where enemies will spawn in a set pattern and the gates will lock and you have to defeat everything to move on. Naturally, since this is the beginning of the game, it's not especially taxing. Yes, there are many breakable walls in this game, though I would not really call them illusory. A lot of them have fairly obvious tells that you can break them. This nice little area is a hot spring. Hot springs are notable for the fact that if you stand in them, your soul gauge will refill. Soul is what we use to heal. So if we were so inclined, we could actually just heal forever while we're standing in here, but I'm pretty sure that there are no enemies that ever come into hot springs, so that's a dubious utility. And it's mostly just to save you the trouble of building it up again. starting area is fairly generous with money because I'm pretty sure that the developers were well aware that you're going to want to buy the mapping equipment as soon as possible. It's extraordinarily useful. Whoops, I thought you were a rock. But most rocks don't move. These toothy bugs have a name, but I can't quite remember what it is. They are fairly non-threatening because they come in and out in a very set interval. It's easy to predict when they'll pop out and when they won't. Because the game has such a wide variety of breakable walls and floors and ceilings, it's good to just hit everything you see with your nail once or twice. You never know when it'll break open. Unless you've played before and you remember. This little outcropping, whoops, is a pain in the butt because you can't just stand under it and hit it. You have to dodge in and out. Of course, to actually get the things, you have to put yourself in danger, but, you know. No risk, no rewards. The energy that you use to heal yourself builds back up when you hit enemies, so provided you're not getting your ass totally kicked, you shouldn't really be in danger of running out of it. And you can also get some from those totems. Maybe I'm just bad, but I have a tendency to take a lot of chip damage in this game, so having a more or less unlimited source of healing is nice. It gets much harder later on, because enemies tend to be stronger and faster and do more damage, and just trading blows with them rapidly becomes untenable, because they will try to punish you for healing in the middle of a fight. Especially bosses. You can tell if there's caterpillars around by a number of ways. The most obvious one is that they will have salable squeaks just on the screen that they're in to let you know that there's one nearby. Whether or not you can find that in due time is another matter entirely, but it's not one of those things where you're just sort of expected to obsessively hit everything and hope that you find them. What? This is too dark. I can't see. Speedrun traps. I'm taking damage to save time. You'll occasionally find these toll machines scattered around Hallownest that you can insert Geo into to unlock certain features. This one unlocks a bell.
Tiema Palava. Amisodo.
The Stagway is essentially this game's primary method of fast travel. By calling our friendly stag, we can then ride him to other stations. The only other one that we have unlocked at the moment is the one in Dirtmouth. Interestingly enough, the station was actually locked the first time we were here. So we've sort of made some tangible progress even though we backtracked. We unlocked the shortcut.
Bapanada.
Now we can finally afford the Wayward Compass, which is extremely important. It's also our first charm. And,
Bapanada.
of these various pins, I would say that the bench pin is probably the most useful. We'll get them all in due time, but for now, we need to prioritize. As the game mentioned, charms don't do anything unless you equip them, so we equip them. You have to be sitting on a bench to do this. You can't just change your loadout in the middle of whatever, which is a little annoying, but I sort of understand too, since this is kind of your only method of character customization in this game. Now that we have the compass, we have a cute little Hollow Knight icon on the map that we can use to track our position. It makes getting around a whole lot easier, I would say. Honestly, I very rarely take off the Wayward Compass, except like it's specifically during tough boss fights where I need some extra firepower. I don't believe we ever get the ability to bite people with our head, but we do get some interesting fighting related abilities if we explore enough. Knockback is a fairly important aspect of this game, in that both you and enemies tend to get knocked back when they're hit with your nail. So keeping track of where you are and where you're going to be can be important. Though there are a couple of charms that can both increase this effect and negate it. The timing on the down stab can be a little finicky, or I can just be bad. Whichever explanation you prefer, you can have. I tend to check my map a lot in this game, both because I like the map checking animation, and because it's a useful thing to do. I sort of wish there was a mini-map, but I understand what they were trying to do with the whole map system. This is the first enemy we run into that has a defensive mechanism, at least one that we can beat at the moment. The big trilobite fella that completely blocked all of our attacks was sort of a special case. The best way to deal with these bugs is to attack while they're attacking from a different angle, making the jump slash pretty useful. The way spikes function in this game is sort of like falling in Metroid Prime. If you hit them, you take a bit of damage and you get sent back to a space from before when you fell or hit the spikes. Meaning that you very rarely actually die from hitting spikes, but you can run into trouble if you keep doing it over and over and your health starts to go down, because unlike in Metroid Prime where you took like 10 damage maximum out of minimum of 100, in this game you will take 1 mask of damage, of which we only have 5 at the moment, so it can start adding up. Now, even though we do have a fully equipped map, we're still under some limitations. We can't actually see uncharted areas until we sit down at a bench and record them. That grub is going to have to wait a while because we have nowhere near the amount of aerial mobility needed to get to him. The bugs of Hallow Nest were quite advanced, seemingly, since this appears to be a fully functional tram. Of course, to use any sort of public transportation, we do need a pass. We can't just talk to and make friends with a tram like we made friends with the stag beetle. So, funny story, in my first playthrough of this game, I actually completely skipped this guy for a long time because I didn't want to just be a jerk and wake him up. But it turns out there's some fairly important things behind where he sits. So, I should say she, because Gruz is a mother. This is the first boss-ish fight in the game. It's not very difficult. Gruz just sort of does this aimlessly. She doesn't have a lot of health either. The only thing that's really noteworthy is that at the end of the fight, a bunch of smaller Gruzes will erupt, which is kind of gross, but you know, bugs. Once they're all dead, the gate opens and you can progress. There's somebody sounding particularly jolly on this ledge, but we just don't quite have the oomph to get there.
Oh, title. Oh, whoopa. ¿Qué volen más? ¿Qué volen más?
Anyway, we just rescued Sly, a resident of Dirtmouth, and Sly is the resident shopkeeper. He has a nasty tendency to overcharge for important things, but given that he's the only business in town, we don't have much choice but to go along with it. He sells stuff that we need, and thus we will need to fork it over eventually. But for some of the more important items, we'll have to save up quite a bit. Anyway, we're back in more or less familiar territory now. In addition to tramways, they also have fairly ornate elevators here, though this one we can't access just yet because the gate is shut. For whatever faults they may have, you can't fault the bugs of Hallownest for not being industrious enough. Since we have a spare moment and we're nearby a bench, we can rest. And all that area that we explored earlier is now filled in. So if we go back there, we know exactly where we are. Like I said before, I can definitely see why the map system in this game might put somebody off, but I also really appreciate it for what they're going for, in that it's sort of an active gameplay element, rather than just something that happens passively. Another one of these big guys. They are altogether not very threatening, at least on their own, because they're so slow to attack, and rather predictable at that. The only thing that can really take you off guard is the shockwave stomp they do. Because it's a video game, they obviously have a shockwave stomp. Well, whatever is beyond here is going to have to wait, because that is a death trap. This area seems quite ornate. Quite large as well. Which means it's a boss fight, hello, it's the False Knight. The False Knight is like the first proper boss that you will fight. He's not especially difficult, but he can be a nasty surprise. Honestly, the same sort of principles that you use to fight the big guys outside more or less applies to the False Knight, because he is also a big guy. The only way you actually do damage to him is by attacking his head when it's vulnerable. Please back off. This is awful. Go away. I'm being corner camped. And every time you do significant damage to him, he will pound the ground in a fury and send rocks tumbling down. It's not too difficult to avoid. Though it would behoove you not to be like me and get greedy. As the fight goes on, rocks will fall with more regularity, but they're still fairly slow and predictable. As is the False Knight. I took a few unnecessary hits because I'm bad, but this is not very hard. That part's always kind of funny because it's a very well done reverse fake out. You think that after you get him 3 times, he's got to be done. But then he starts swinging around again. But it turns out he is done. It's kind of cute. I like it. For his defeat, we get the City Crest, an item necessary to progress. He is called the False Knight because he was more or less possessing the suit of armor rather than using it normally because he's so small in comparison. What the? Oh, well, okay. Bye-bye. I guess his mace was also a bug. In addition to the City Crest, we get a whole bunch of geo for our troubles. Right, this is the way we came. Sorry. Getting a little turned around. Nothing else we can do in this room for the time being, though there are a couple of secrets to be had once we have more abilities. This unlocks a bit of a shortcut. This is what happens if you miss Cornifer in your first run through the area. There's no need to despair. He'll leave a little calling card and tell you to go just pick up the map from the store in Dirtmouth. It costs a bit more this way, I think, but it's still pretty negligible. You're never completely just screwed out of a map, which is very important. In this completely legit-looking place, we meet a new friend.
Oh, Louis Simba, ma?
Our friend gives us a magic spell, the first one we'll get in the game, and a very useful one at that. Vengeful Spirit. By simply tapping B instead of holding it, instead of healing, we shoot out a damaging mass of energy.
Oh, malama too.
So to get out of here, we have to do the Snail Shaman a favor. This essentially acts as a tutorial for why Vengeful Soul is useful. Vengeful Spirit, I'm sorry. Now, Vengeful Spirit does a lot of damage, but it also takes up a lot of your soul meters, so it's best used for enemies that are fairly resilient, not the little small fry. I'll show it off eventually, don't worry. I'm just being frugal. That large totem will completely refill your soul bar if you so need it, but because I am frugal, I have no need of it. So it is precisely for these enemies that we have Vengeful Spirit. It is more or less the only way to damage him without him going into a defensive stance and blocking everything. Of course, he won't make it easy for us, because he will still spit his blobs. And his little friends. That's a double-edged sword, however, because we need the little friends to refill our soul bar. We also get a charm for our troubles.
Oh, Louis Simba, man.
Anyway, we can leave now, but I think I went the wrong direction and I missed something. That's always a concern in games like this. In this playthrough, I have resolved to use my magic more often because in my first playthrough I was ridiculously frugal with it because I had to heal a lot, but I figure that if I use my soul to kill things before they can get close, then I won't need to heal as much. And it turns out the only thing up here was money and lifeblood, which is useful, I guess, but it's a bit out of the way. At any rate, we are now equipped to move on to the next area. You might recall that there was a path that was blocked by a similar trilobite beast than as the one we just fought. And now that we have the Vengeful Spirit, we can deal with it. Now, as you can see, even a full 3 blasts will not take care of him, so we do need to use the little roly-polies that he spits out to finish him off and refill our soul bar. Now, I believe this is the first instance we have found of water in this game. And it's a little bit misleading. That water is acidic and harmful, but not all water in this game is. You can tell what's safe or not by whether or not it's bubbling and boiling. The next area of the game is Green Path, a verdant area filled with lush vegetation, overgrowth, and similarly themed enemies. It's a bit of a step up, and some of the enemies will explode in poison gas on death, so that's always something that you have to watch out for here. Provided you keep moving and don't linger, you should be fine. But you also have to pay attention to where you're going, to where the corpses that you make are knocked. Like I mentioned before, this game has knockback, and it can come into play here. The path splits fairly immediately here. Oh wait, no, this is the way we came. I'm stupid. I'm dumb. Help. Sorry, I'm starting to flag. I'm sort of forcing myself to do this today. In addition to bugs, there are various plant-based enemies as well, such as that fly-trap-looking thing. The enemies here are quite fond of hiding themselves in the underbrush, so you need to pay more attention, which means I'm completely dead. Since we have a spare moment, I might as well equip the Soul Catcher charm that we got. It increases the amount of soul that you get from striking enemies. Useful, if somewhat unexciting. Where are those things even bouncing? That doesn't even make sense. Hello. Oh, goodbye. These geodeposits right next to acidic pools is sort of annoying, because they will often go bouncing into the murk and then it's dead and gone. My powers of elocution are rapidly leaving me because I just referred to money as something that can die. Maybe in the coming communist revolution. We'll see. It seemed like there was something that was reacting when I hit it, but I guess there isn't. One of the new mechanics of this area is the fact that you can use your nail to cut down these logs, which create platforms you can pass. You can also do something extremely wicked with them. Squish. You don't get any geo for doing it that way, but I figured it was worth showing off. The neat thing about those little charging mosquito looking guys, there it goes again, is that if you bat them away while they're charging, they can get stuck in the wall. There's a paper trail and some humming, so we know that Cornifer is nearby.
Hungry Mopta.
Always purchase map.
Chocolate, correct this.
I believe we saw her. At any rate, we have the map now, which should help quite a bit. One of the important features of maps in this game is not necessarily them telling you where you are, it's them alerting you to the fact that there might be passages to other rooms that you have missed. Of course, it won't tell you about secret passages, you're sort of on your own for those, but... By interacting with this questionably friendly NPC, the hunter, we get his journal, which acts as our bestiary. There are sort of rewards for filling it out, but it's mostly just flavor text and learning about the stuff that you do in the game. It's nice. Another good deed done. Oh! The knockback. I've been undone. The first time I actually get to demonstrate that these refill your soul meter, I think. They do, I'm no liar. Oh, I missed it. I'm a fool. Hello again. Goodbye again. Now that we have it, each time we kill a new type of enemy, we'll get a little pop-up saying that we have a new journal entry that we can peruse. There are actually 2 different entries for each enemy that you can get. Though the second one requires that you kill a certain number of them rather than just one. I only think there are like a couple of enemies where you would need to specifically grind that out. Most of the time you just get it naturally. Remember what I said about needing to pay attention in this zone? I don't. This is a new type of enemy. It looks big and imposing, but it's sort of nothing, because you just hit it and its leaf camouflage falls off, and then you can just blast it with a vengeful spirit, or hit it with a sword. Sploosh. No, I'm being true to my word and using my Vengeful Spirit more. It's very helpful against the camouflage guys that we were fighting just a room ago. A little bit less against the charging mosquitoes because they're small and fast and they can dodge it. You can also hit multiple enemies, which is pretty good. Once more in uncharted territory. If you see a bench on the map, it's not a bad idea to just make a beeline for it. Benches let you fill in unexplored map squares, so it's important. At least for me, because I'm bad at finding my way around without a map. And arguably with a map. Some benches are hidden behind toll machines. I feel a good deal more comfortable now that that's done. Like I said, in case an accident happens and we actually die, that also sets our spawn point more nearby. The brambly patches that you might be seeing here and there are the same as spikes in function. They just have a nature flavor to them instead of a... There are spikes here for some reason flavor to them. Oh right, that's a gate. There is nothing that we can do right now in this room. So, we can kill this guy for a bestiary entry. Eventually. Better just use magic. You can find occasional little bits of lore here, especially in Green Path for some reason. Most of it is sort of meaningless to us at the moment, but later on it might make more sense. This game rather does enjoy being enigmatic. And, you know, same, from time to time. A little mystery never hurt anybody. At least in a video game. Probably. Sitting on a bench respawns enemies, but that tends to not be a huge deal at this point in the game. One of the things about these 2D style games with lots of freedom of movement is that it's pretty easy to just dodge past enemies that are giving you trouble. Not always, of course, so this philosophy can come back to bite you if you're not careful. This game was played at Games Done Quick a little while ago, summer. And there's a fairly involved speed route for it that I don't know. Hey, stop it. This guy is pretty tough. I would recommend using magic on him. Of course, he can block it too, so you have to be careful. Sometimes, if you get enemies that block overhead with their shield like that, you can sort of exploit their AI. If you keep pogoing off the shield, they will eventually go for an attack and leave themselves vulnerable. But there are also enemies that can punish this fairly severely, so your mileage may vary. See that in this area the green path and the crossroads are sort of starting to intersect a little. You can see that the surroundings are becoming stonier and the enemies that we fought earlier are here. Seems like we have a friend in trouble here. This leads to a bit of a mini-boss. As you can see, it tends to favor diving attacks. And it can be a little difficult to hit because it likes to dig around outside range. And I'm not sure what will happen if he can dodge magic. Doesn't look like it. Whoops. Got him. Slowdown kind of screwed me up there. Enemies in this game tend to die fairly spectacularly if they're large.
Akala, man? Man, you know me abyss. Man, you know me abyss.
Zod the Mighty is kind of a dick, but he is also kind of a chump. You're not obligated to save him, but I don't know. Being a dick isn't grounds for getting eaten by a giant mosquito. This is a bit new. We actually don't... This is an entirely new area. We don't have a map for it yet. Also very spiky. On both sides. There are stalactites raining down too. Sadly, we can't quite make that jump because the ceiling's too low. For now, the only thing we can really get in here is that geode deposit. We are accruing a fairly reasonable collection, which, believe me, we will need. After a certain point, Geo tends to fall off in usefulness, but at the beginning of the game, you do need a lot of it for some fairly essential items. And at the end of the game, there's some fairly expensive collectibles you can purchase. More lore here. We can also vaguely hear a little buggy friend crying out for help. Oh, there he is. But we have to face one of these guys. At least we're not locked in this time. Enemies in this game do contact damage, which is kind of annoying when you just like bounce off their shield harmlessly, but you know. Yeah, no. Be free, little friend! I'll have to check back in with the Grub Father a little bit later. He'll no doubt have some sick swag for us. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. There's still stuff to explore, and we aren't obligated to kill those guys. handy lifeblood over here. I think I forgot about that. I'll take it though. There is a little mechanic in this game where you can sort of clash swords with the enemy and it'll make a little noise. It generally means that you won't take damage. It's mostly just there for flavor, but it's nice. I can't really think of a fight where it's like actually useful to go for parries. But there might be one. We're back over here. Alright, I guess it's time to go and sit at a bench to look at the progress we made at the map. Map updated. Alright. Looks like just about the only place we haven't explored is that area to the west, so let's get going. You should always look out for the little signs that you find in here. They often point to useful things like stag stations. And another bench. Fortunately, we have to pay another toll, and it's higher this time. But it's important to hit these for later use. We don't need to go anywhere, so we're just sort of unlocking it. The stag beetle directly requested that we ring any bells that we find, so I don't really feel bad about bothering him. It's what he wanted.
Drosjek Halimo.
I mean, I wouldn't really call it stalking. I sort of just came over and waved and said hi and you ran away.
Garama!
Unfortunately, Hornet appears to have some beef with us. She's also quite noisy, especially compared... Well, actually no, the False Knight made a lot of noise too. She attacks with a sewing needle, which I think is a nice touch. It can be difficult to actually find an opportunity to heal yourself, but a lot of bosses have a stagger mechanic. If if you hit them enough, they'll go into a state where they can't do anything for a while. Hornet's a pretty big step up from the False Knight because she's so mobile and somewhat unpredictable. You can, of course, use the stagger phase for extra damage if you're feeling bold. Maybe I shouldn't be using my magic defensively. No, definitely not. Well, at least I have an opportunity now. He's also got quite a bit of health. There we go. For defeating Hornet, we get the Mothwing Cloak. Easily one of the most useful items in the game. By pressing right trigger, you can dash. And apparently dashing has made somebody very upset. More cryptic things are happening. The Mothwing Cloak gives us a perfect opportunity to conquer some of those low gaps that we've been finding with, like, the ceiling really low. I said very eloquently. This little side area is called the Lake of Un. There's a bench here and we can meet QUIRREL again.
Na minobis. Goa, nudo Ilamak. Na minobis. One
benefit to talking to QUIRREL is that he will sort of hint at the fact that the current state of our nail is not the end state. We can upgrade it later. Yeah, he's not friendly. There's currently nothing we can really do at the lake because it's full of acid, and acid hurts. I killed the guy outside, by the way, just so you know. Anyway. With the Mothwing Cloak, there are numerous paths now available to us that were once not. Also, just mashing the dash button is reasonably faster than just walking. Wrong way. Wrong way. Wrong way. That's what happens if you can't kill the little bug before it goes back underground. You have to hit it again. And if you don't have magic, it's kind of a pain. The dash helps a little bit, but half the time you just run into it and take damage. Or maybe that's just me. The possibility exists. Anyway, we're probably going to be wrapping up soon since it's nearing 10 o'clock. Don't look at the clock while you're playing the game. Probably once I find a good stopping point. Bench up there will do. All right. Excuse me, I'm sorry for being so out of it today, but I'm very tired due to circumstances. So that'll do it for tonight. I'm not sure if I'll have a chance to do this tomorrow, but we'll see. If I'm feeling any more alive, it probably should be possible. Anyway, I think I will actually probably upload this one to YouTube, since it's sort of more of a proper playthrough rather than just losing in Hearthstone. Anyway, see you later. Thanks for tuning in.